Today is actually a very special day. Tonight is the Yartzeit, the day of passing of the Rambam, which is Maimonides. You know who Maimonides is? So Maimonides lived from 1135 to about 1204, and he was actually a very, very special person because he was not just a rabbi, but he was also a doctor and a philosopher. So he wrote many, many different books. Rambam. Yeah, Maimonides. He wrote, I guess in Russian there's a name. How do you say Maimonides in Russian? You know?
Yeah, it has this word, but
I think it's
Maimonides or something?
yeah, you're right. Maimonides.
Anyhow, so he wrote many, many different works, and he was buried at the end. He was buried in Israel, in Tveria. Okay, so do you want to go over there so they can sit? Do you want to sit here, or you want to sit over here? Okay, fine, no problem. Anyway, so that's just the sideline because I just wanted to kind of like tell you this because we shouldn't forget about who lived many years ago and he passed away today. Was his day of passing. Okay, so basically what we're planning to talk about is the story of Devorah, which is a prophetess in Devorah, and she lived from 1107 to 1067, which is before the Common Era. Now, if we know in Israel, when the Jewish people came into Israel, it was kind of a little bit like there was no real leader. First it was Moses, and Moses passed away in the desert, and then there was Joshua, and he kind of led the whole Jewish people. But after Joshua, there was no like really strong leaders. They had something called shoftim, which means judges. And these shoftim would come and judge the Jewish people. They would come to them and ask them different laws and what this means, and are we supposed to do it this way or that way, or two people are arguing and they have a problem. So these were like the judges, and they were also usually very righteous people, but some of them weren't as righteous as others. So we're talking about here one of the judges, and her name was Devorah. She was a woman. She was very well known. But before we get to that, if you remember last week, what we talked about is we talked about the cycle. Right? We were saying that first we have the problem, and then we look at the problem and we say, okay, we take it from the part of like being like a child, and saying the baby brain basically back here, right? And then we try to make this decision on how we're going to go about it. And then what happens next? Then we decide what we're going to do with it, and we use our intellectual decision. And then we go on to the prayer. We pray to God, and what happens after that? Then we say, what do we say after that? After we pray to God, what was the next one? The next one was we hopefully God does some sort of miracle for us or helps us some way, and then we go to gratitude. So it's interesting that it doesn't only work for us personally, but it works for the Jewish nation all the time. First, the Jews, they forget God. They run away from God. And they say, who cares about God? Who cares about the Torah? Who cares about anything? And all of a sudden, they start realizing that there's a problem. There's a tsar. There's some sort of problem that they get in their life. Once they have a problem, then they start thinking, why do I have this problem? Let me get closer to God. Let me do tshuva. Let me become better. Let me decide what I'm going to do. And then what happens? Then they pray to God and say, God, help us, please. And what happens after that? God tries to help them. And he does some kind of miraculous thing for them. And after that, they praise God. They have gratitude to God. And then after a while, after a couple of years, they forget about God again. So this is the cycle of the Jewish people. And this is the same. It was interesting because when the Jews came into Israel, this cycle was every 40 to 50 years. It was amazing how it kept going like that. Because they really didn't have one good leader. They had small leaders, and not everybody listened to that leader. And they didn't have anyone really strong. And if we see here at that time, when we're talking about the time of Devorah, before she became the judge at her time, what happens? So we have this king, Melech Yavan, that comes in and says that he wants to take over the Jews, and he puts them under him, and he taxes them, and now the Jewish people are under this king. And then what happens after that? Then they pray to God because they're upset. They don't know what to do. So comes along Devorah, who's an amazing person. It says that she was the wife of Lapidus, which actually her husband, whose name was what? Barak.
The last name is very.
Right, Lapidus.
Yeah,
It sounds
Lapidus
familiar. Okay.
I know.
It's you know some of Lapidus.
Yeah.
Well, Lapidus is an interesting name because Lapidus also means torches in Hebrew. That's where the name comes from. Why? Because Devorah, it says Devorah Ashes Lapidus. She is the wife of making those torches. What did she do? She used to make the wicks for the temple, for the Mishkan. Actually, it wasn't a temple at that time. It was a tabernacle. It was a small thing in Shiloh at that time. And she would make the wicks for the menorah. And they were very thick wicks, the ones that she made. And what was the reason she made those wicks? Because her husband was not a very learned man. And she felt that if she would give him the wicks to take to this Mishkan, what would he do? He'd come to the Mishkan and he would see all the Talmidei Chachamim, all the smart people. And what would happen?
He would learn too.
He would learn also. Exactly.
What is?
He would learn too.
Ah.
He would learn, and then he would become a bigger Talmid Chacham. And it's an interesting thing, right? That she was so smart.
She brought him.
She brought him to become smarter. So she was very learned. She loved learning, and she wanted that he should be learned too. So when she would take and make those wicks, he would go to the Mishkan and speak to all these people and say, "Oh, hi, how are you?" And he would be among them, and they would be discussing Torah, and he wanted to be like them, so he started learning too. So she ended up making him very, very, very learned, which is very interesting. So her husband, Barak, was an interesting person also. It says that he worked with her a lot. And the Sanhedrin, which was the group of judges at that time, not judges, but they were like the heads of the Jewish people, they called the Sanhedrin, they appointed her as the head judge. It's interesting that they appointed a woman at that time, and we think of a woman in those days was very low. She could never be a leader. But it's not true, because in the Jewish people, there are plenty of women that were leaders. Not a lot, but there were. And we see also that there were 7 prophetesses. She was one of them. 7 women prophets. She was one of those prophets. The first one was Sarah. Sarah was a prophetess. Remember what Sarah said? She said, "Send away Yishmael." And God said to her husband, "Listen to your wife, because she is on a higher level of prophecy than you are." And so therefore Abraham listened to Sarah. The second one was Miriam. Miriam was the wife of, she was not the wife, but she was the sister of Moses, right? Miriam was the sister of Moses. She was also a prophetess. And also we know Devorah, okay, like we said. Chana, who was the mother of Samuel, she came to the, she came crying, right? She was crying, she wanted to have a baby, and then she had a son who was the biggest prophet, so she was also a prophetess. Chana, and then Abigail, who was one of the wives of King David, and then Huldah, who was actually a prophetess during the time of Yirmiyahu, and Esther, Queen Esther, was also a prophetess. So we have here 7 different women that were prophets, okay, in the Torah.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
So if your son is a prophet, it makes you a prophetess? Or?
No. It's nothing to do with it. But her son happens to have been a prophet, but she was also a prophet.
Okay.
Yeah. No. It's nothing to do with this. Okay. Yeah. It doesn't make you. A prophet is basically God chooses you to be the prophet. Like he comes into your dream and he talks to you. But there's no prophecy nowadays anymore. Prophecy ended when the first temple, I think the first temple was destroyed. Prophecy ended. The same thing, at the same time the prophecy ended, idol worship ended too. So in other words, nowadays we don't have the thought even to worship an idol, because we don't believe in that. But we do have our own problems, like we don't love each other as we should. We're very judgmental of each other. And people at that time were very beautiful to each other. They loved each other, they cared about each other, and they never judged anyone. So our Yetzer Hara, our evil inclination, is judgmentalness, judging other people. Whereas their problem was idol worship. So we could never understand them, and they couldn't understand us. Because each time, each generation is a complete different set of Yetzer Haras, of evil inclinations.
So they didn't judge at all back then?
No, they weren't, maybe they did, but they were
Not
much
like us.
less judgmental. I mean, we are extremely judgmental. And it's easy for us to say, oh, you see that person? Look what they're doing. And think about what they're doing and get upset and saying, oh my goodness, but you don't see yourself, which is wrong. And at that time, they all weren't like that. Everybody loved each other. They cared about each other. They were, always friends. And they never looked at other people as something wrong with them. What they did is they were idol worshippers. And so we don't understand their problem, and they won't understand our problem.
Why did they kill each other then?
Yeah.
Why do people kill each other? Like, what are you talking about? Like,
Yeah, the hatred they had for other people between themselves.
Actually, during the first temple, there wasn't hatred. It was the second temple that started with the hatred.
Okay.
The first temple, there was no hatred for each other. There was maybe egos, and people wanted to be king, or they wanted to go, overpower the other person. But there was no hatred within the Jewish people.
And idols.
But there were idols in the first temple.
First temple.
First temple was idol. The second temple already, they were started to become already more sinas chinam, like people fighting with each other. But during the first temple, it was not like that.
They hated.
Right, they hated each other, and it continues now because this is our test. We will continue to do this until Mashiach comes. Why? Because this is our exile. Our exile is based on because we hated each other, therefore we're in exile, and therefore we continue to do the same thing. And as soon as we can turn that around, then we'll be able to, have redemption. Because this is our difficulty. Whereas their difficulty was idol worship, and we can't even understand what that means. Although there is a form of idol worship now, right? We know that people worship, movie stars, they worship baseball players, etc. That's also a form of idol worship. Some people worship money, and they go after money, and I need more money, and I need more money. But, so there is a form of idol worship, but not the kind of idol worship that they had in those days, which meant that they were worshiping the stones, or metal, or something like that, which doesn't exist anymore. I mean, in our times exists more the hatred within each other. That's what exists now. That's the difficulty in our life.
What about also personal prophecy today? You wake up and you have a feeling like today I'm gonna get that job or I'm gonna run into that person, and it happens.
Every single person is tuned to their essence. Okay? Sometimes in the morning it's much stronger to be in tune with your essence only because you haven't done any sins yet for that day.
That makes sense.
So you wake up in the morning and you're clean completely, and so most of the time when you think about something, it's more connected to who you are as a person, your real essence, not all the layers of garbage that you go through during the day. Even when you're eating a lot, that's a layer of garbage that you're imposing on yourself. So when you hear these, like I said before, remember I told you that when you hear these really still, quiet voice, that's who you are. That's you. It's the real you. But when you hear the loud voices that are coming around you, go do this, make sure to do that, why are you doing this, etc., etc. When the voices are very loud, you know that those voices are the Yetzer Hara. That's the evil inclination. He's talking to you all the time. What, do you like this person? But she did blah, 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 blah to you. You see, that's, and it's very loud because it's like screaming in your ears. But if you're very quiet and you let yourself meditate and just listen to yourself quietly, that inner voice comes out. And like you said in the morning, that's when I hear all this tiny little voices in the morning telling me the good things of what I really need to do.
Okay.
Anyway, so let's go back to Devorah. So Devorah was actually very rich. And she owned date trees in Yericho, which is Jericho now. She owned gardens in Ramah. She owned olive trees in another place. I mean, she had a lot of richness. So no one can bribe her. She was always, she had enough money. So it actually was a good thing for her to be the judge, because if people came to get judged from her, she didn't need to take a bribe because she had plenty of riches. It was not necessary for her. Also, she sat under this tree, which was the date tree, and that date tree goes back to the time of Jacob. Now, how did this date tree come about? During the time of Jacob, when his brother Esau was fighting with him and he had to run away, his mother told him that my nurse, Rivka, who I brought with me, she is going to come to you and tell you when Esau calms down so you can come back to live in my house. So, and that's what exactly happened when, after 20 years of Jacob being in the house of Laban and him having all these children, his mother, Rivka, took her nurse. Her name was Devorah, actually. This nurse was named Devorah. And this Devorah went to Jacob to tell him that his brother calmed down. And on the way there, she got there, and they all started coming back towards Israel. And on the way back from Israel, when they reached Israel, she passed away, this Devorah. And so Yaakov buried her under this tree, which is called Tomer Devorah. It's a special tree, in the place that the temple was going to be built in the future. So she was buried under that tree. And that's why this Devorah, who was actually named after her, she was also sitting under this tree and judging people. And why was she sitting outside and not inside? Anybody know? Why would she sit outside? Why not in her house?
So she won't be anything in her house. She won't be limited by the walls.
What?
She won't be limited by the walls.
No. There's another reason. Think about Judaism. Like, why shouldn't a woman sit? Why is it better for a woman to sit outside than to sit inside and be? No. Think about Judaism.
First should see her.
No. Think about the Jewish law.
Jewish law, if the man wants to come to their
House of the
house
woman.
for her, she cannot stay with
She can't.
him.
Very good.
She
Very
cannot stay
good.
with me.
So then
She has
nobody
to-
should suspect.
Right,
Nobody
that
should
she's-
suspect that she would be alone with the man alone in the
Right.
house. So she was such a righteous woman that she decided that she's going to sit outside under the tree. Even if it rains, I guess she can still be shaded by the tree. Or when it's hot, she's shaded by the tree. And sit under the tree and judge the people so no one should ever suspect her of being with the man alone in the house. Which is interesting. So she had all that planned out in advance.
Isn't that like too much, like caring what people think?
It's not what people think. It's a law that you're not allowed to be with a man alone in the house. So because of that, with a closed door.
He's not
So
good.
because of that, even if the door is open, she didn't want anyone to think that she'd closed the door. It's better, in other words, to be able to keep the law to 100%.